الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على سيد الرسل وخاتم الأنبياء وعلى آله الأزكياء وأصحابه الأتقياء أما بعد. قال النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم: إذا عاد الرجل أخاه أو زاره قال الله له: طبت وطاب ممشاك وتبوأت منزلا في الجنة. The book we are studying is Al-Adab Al-Mufrad, written by Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. And the reason why Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi wrote this book is to educate the reader with the basic etiquettes of life. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi is commonly known for his Sahih al-Bukhari, his great masterpiece. Very few people know of his other books. And this is one of the more famous books from the other books that he's written, from the other 30 odd books that he's written. And subhanAllah, by studying this book we understand how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam educated us with every aspect of life. And something as basic as etiquettes that every father and every mother takes as their responsibility to educate their children with, or if your teacher finds it their obligation to make sure they educate their students with, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also educated the ummah with these very same etiquettes and the highest level and the highest standards of etiquettes. So previously we discussed, and as Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, he started the book off with the rights of parents, rights of relatives, rights of neighbors, rights of those who you associate with. And then we went on, we talked about various topics as we discussed the rights of children, parenting, so on and so forth. And in the past 2-3 weeks we discussed some of the disease of the tongue. We talked about the harms of backbiting. We talked about the harms of spreading rumors, bringing this person's conversation, throwing it theirs, mixing talks of this person said that, this person said that, this person said that. Last week we talked about how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he prohibited to overly praise someone, to go overboard in praising someone. So if you praise someone, praise them in moderation, never go overboard. And then we talked about the disadvantages of doing so and the possibilities the wrong things that could possibly happen on behalf of the one that's praising and the one that's also being praised. So that was our last week's session. This week Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, he moves forward now. The part of the tongue is now passed by and now he moves forward. What he brings today is Babu Ziyarah, the chapter of visiting one another. Now, one of the greatest characters that a person can have is to be social, to be able to approach people and to be approachable. The person can go to people, he can create a conversation with them. And at the same time, people can come to that person and also speak with that person too. So this is what we call ziyarah, visiting one another. Okay. The benefits of this is that it allows, when a person is visiting another person, the one who's being visited, the host, goes the extra yard to honor the one that's being visited. The one that's being visited, the one that's visiting, at times will also go an extra yard to do whatever they can to dress up or to bring gifts for the one that's hosting. So, in this meeting of theirs, they happen to honor one another and they create love for one another. Do you understand? Visiting one another. You create friendship with people that you visit. So, instead of just staying in our isolated caves or our small little houses or living there and rotting away there, what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam encourages us to do is to go and visit people. So for example, if you're traveling and you go to Turkey. Now when you go to Turkey, you have to figure out, this is just an example, if you go to any country, first think to yourself that along with my sightseeing and enjoying myself, is there anyone here that I can visit? Is there anyone here I can visit? The person you're visiting does not necessarily only have to be your parents or your relatives or a friend. The one you're visiting can also be a scholar. The one you're visiting can also be a believer. The one you're visiting could be someone who just lost a family member recently. The one you're visiting could be someone who's sick lying there in the hospital and there's no one there to care for that person. So, visiting individuals is a very great thing. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though he was Sayyidul Rasul, as we say, the leader of all prophets, we can only imagine or try to imagine the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But yet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being so great and so lofty in his position, he still made it a point to go and visit people. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at some point he's visiting an orphan. At some point he's visiting a widow. At some point Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is visiting the sick. At some point Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is visiting someone's family who just lost someone. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he always made a point to visit people. And by visiting these people, it showed how humble Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. He wasn't a person that said, you have to come visit me. This is our attitude many times. That you come to me, I'm not coming to you. Okay? So there's honor in visiting people, and there's also a reward in being visited. Both ways. Okay? So we shouldn't be people that say, I'm not moving from my place, I want everyone to come visit me. That's not how it works. Okay? At times you should go to visit other people too. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made it a point that when he would go to a town, when he'd go to a city, when he'd come to a place, or in his community when something would happen, when the need would arise, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would go and visit people. Now, we should also make it a point to ensure that we also go to visit people. By visiting people, when we go, we should make sure we take our families along with us. Our children, especially the young ones, right? The friends of our children, why? Obviously, I'll go to the etiquettes of visiting, that's coming ahead. But when we do plan to visit people, we should somehow fit these people in too. The reason being is that because so the children can learn these etiquettes too. If the parents don't make it a point to take their children to go to the hospital and visit the sick person there, or if the parents don't make it a point to take their children and go visit the pious people of the community, or if the parents don't make it their responsibility that they take their children and go and visit a sick person in the hospital every week, what will happen is that many times, or take the children and go visit an elderly person in the community, right? The elderly person doesn't necessarily have to be pious, just an elderly person. If the parents don't make this effort, the chances are very high that that child will grow up and he'll be alienated from these characters, right? From these characteristics. He'll have nothing to do with them, and he'll actually greatly dislike them. Whenever the father says, or whenever he has to go visit a family member, he'll say, no, I don't want to go. If someone tells him that your cousin lives in so and so state, we're going there for a wedding, he'll say, no, I don't want to go. And the times where he will want to go will probably be because of the wedding rather than visiting the family member. Okay, so we need to make sure, first of all, we make it our habit to go and visit people. There was a person that came to our masjid, and I recall that he came and there was a lengthy incident where this person, he was a cab driver for many years, and then someone said to him that the salah that you read according to the fiqh of Imam Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi is totally incorrect, and you have to repeat all the salats that you've read. So this person, bichara, he was an old person, taxi driver, he really wasn't too educated. The only thing he did was pray to salah and one or two extra things, and the rest of that he just was busy earning his money. He became so depressed that he actually stopped reading salah altogether and he gave up on deen. He said, I'm not going to do anything anymore. I can't believe it. For 40, 50 years, 6 years of my life, all of my salah didn't count. So this person came and said that there's a salah that's prayed according to the fiqh of Imam Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi. Does that count? So I said, not only does it count, but this is actually embedded within the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's another thing that some people may not accept it, but the reality is that it's embedded within the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As is the salah of Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi, as he taught to his students, as was the salah that was taught by Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi to his students, and as was the salah that was taught by Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi, and the other scholars and the mujtahideen that existed at the time, the salah they taught to their students was also embedded within the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So then, this person, he was saying, that this old man who stopped praying in salah, he was saying that the only thing I ever do in my life, besides praying my salah, is that I go to visit the sick people. He was talking about himself. In discussion he mentioned this. That whenever he has a break, whenever this man, cab driver, whenever he had a break in the middle, or he realized that he wasn't going to have a customer for an hour or two, or slow hours, what he would do is he'd pull up to the hospital, find out, call people and ask if anyone was sick there, any Muslims, call the masjid, call some local brothers, that is anyone that's sick, and go visit them on a daily basis. Something that you and I probably haven't done in weeks or months. Do you understand? And the people that we do go to visit are people that we know. When is the last time we went to visit people that we do not even know? Subhanallah. Right? Halaki Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to go to visit every single person. So, visiting. The importance of visiting one another. What this does is it works on building a community. If you've been to someone's house for a dinner in this gathering right here, the chances are every time you see that person in the masjid, there will be a warm salam with a nice wide smile. Because you feel something for one another. Do you understand? You feel a connection for one another. So that ziyarah that Imam Bukhari is talking about here, babu ziyarah. The importance of visiting one another. He brings a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as related by Imam Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِذَا عَادَ الرَّجُلُ أَخَاهُ أَوْ زَارَهُ, when a man goes to visit a sick brother of his, or he goes to just visit him, أَوْ زَارَهُ, just casual visiting. قال الله له, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to him, طِبْتَ, what you've done is very well, was very good. وَطَابَ مَمْشَاكَ, and your walking was also very good too. And basically, the sacrifice you went through to go visit that person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I also love that too. وَتَبَوَّأْتَ مَنْزِلًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ, and you've actually just prepared for yourself an abode in paradise. Just by going to visit another person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَتَبَوَّأْتَ مَنْزِلًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ, that you've just prepared for yourself an abode in paradise, a place in paradise. So who should we visit, who should we not visit? Realistically speaking, you should try to visit every person. Whether they're Muslim or not, you should still try to visit people. It's a good thing to do. Visit people, right? Your character shows from there. But some people, you should make an extra effort to go visit. For example, the top on the list would be parents. Obviously, there's no doubt in that. There's no second opinion in that. The top on the list would be your parents. Okay. Then after that, your close family members. And after your close family members, then you should also make it a point to visit our neighbors. And after our neighbors, visit those that have that have had a loss in their family. Okay, someone who's had a loss in their family, go visit them. Or someone that's facing some calamity or difficulty, going to visit them. Then at the same time, it's very good to visit someone who's sick. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has so many ahadith, and glad tidings for the one who goes to visit the sick. Okay. Thereafter, also making it a point to go visit the graveyard. We should try to visit the graveyard on a weekly basis. The Quran says, "Alhaakum at-takathur hatta zurtum al-maqabir." That this abundance of things that you're trying to gather together, all your wealth and all these things that you're gathering, your business, your job, your work, your family, all the things that engage you, alhaakum, they're going to destroy you. Hatta zurtum al-maqabir, until you go and visit the graveyard. Hatta zurtum, until you go and visit al-maqabir, the graveyard. So we should also make it a point to visit the graveyard on a weekly basis. Particularly those individuals who have lost their parents and their parents are buried in a local graveyard, you should definitely go to visit them at least once a week. At least once a week you should go to visit them. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he would pass by the graveyard, he would say, "Assalamu alaikum ya dara qawm al-mu'minin, ya dara qawm al-muslimin, wa inna insha'Allah bikum lahiqun." That Assalamu alaikum, O people of the graveyard here, ya dara qawm al-mu'minin, right? Those people that are buried here, wa inna insha'Allah bikum lahiqun. The reality is that one day we're also going to join your party too. One day or the other, we're going to join your group too. So that's when we give you salam, so we recognize one another, we get to know one another. One day we're going to be joining here too, right? So we should also make it a habit to visit the graveyard, especially for our children. It kind of teaches them that there's more to life than just Xbox. For our children, it teaches them that there's more to life than your Wii and your PSP and GameCube, whatever is out there. All these things, there's more to life than these things, right? The reality of life is the end point right here, which is a graveyard. Okay, and what's going to help there is what actually matters in life. What won't help there, the reality is that it really doesn't have much value. Okay. At the same time, we should make it a point to also visit the pious people. We should always make it a point that wherever we go, within our communities, we should try to stay in the company of the pious. Right? You know, there's a very famous saying in Urdu, that I'll translate it, and I don't know how scientifically true this is, but I heard it from my brother the other day, so I'll just relate it again. Tarbuza se rang pakarta hai. Right? That a watermelon takes color from another watermelon. I'm not sure if that has any scientific significance there, but it's a saying anyway. That when a person stays with another person, he learns, he takes fragrance from them. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says something similar to this, that when a person visits a perfume shop, when he enters into the perfume shop, when he leaves, he comes out fragrant. If he applies perfume from there, then that person's he's going to be booming fragrance. And even if he doesn't apply fragrance from there, just being in that environment, when he leaves, automatically he'll pick up some nice smell to him. So if a person comes to the gathering of the pious people, or comes in the gathering of hadith, or some halaqah or tafsir, even if he doesn't benefit, even if he's just sitting there, right? Rasulullah ﷺ says that the angels come and they tell Allah that, "Oh Allah, all these people are here, they're seeking refuge from the fire of hell and asking for your paradise, but there's one person from them who was sleeping." Allah says, because he came to the gathering, forgive him too. So even if this person wasn't paying attention, is just sleeping in the gathering, that person is forgiven. Do you understand? So attending the gathering and maybe and possibly not even benefiting from the gathering is still a source of benefit. It's still a source of salvation. But if a person does benefit, and a person does learn a hadith or two, does write down a hadith or two, keeps it in his wallet, keeps it in his top pocket, reads it time after time, tries to act upon, implement it. Even if it's from this gathering, if someone implements a single thing that is said today, the reality is that you've walked out with a great portion of fragrance. Do you understand? And this fragrance is the fragrance of the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So making it a habit of visiting the pious. Not only attending the lectures, visiting them too. But try to find out which imam who leads the salats and which masajid, and just travel there sometimes. Is the imam there? Assalamu alaikum, how are you doing? How is your family? How are your children? Everything's okay? It's a good meeting. Do you understand? Just doing ziyarah of people, visiting people. Okay, this has a lot of benefit to it. And what happens is that the person that you go to visit, people that attend a lecture, there's only so much attention that the pious person or the scholar whose lecture you're attending may be able to give to you. But when you go one-on-one and go and visit someone, say Assalamu alaikum in their masjid, or go to their house and say Assalamu alaikum to them, give them a gift, talk to them for a little while, that person then remembers you. Do you understand? That person, this so-and-so person came to me. Do you understand? And he comes to me every week. And I remember this person, I'll make dua for that person. That's when the du'as actually come. So we should make it a point to go and visit the pious people at all times. The Sahaba Ridwanullahi ta'ala majma'in, they loved visiting the pious person at their time who was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They love visiting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, the Sahabi said, Ya Allah, I used to use these eyes to look at the face of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now I don't need them anymore. And he fell blind then. And he was happy to stay blind for the rest of his life. Do you understand? So we should also make it a point to visit the pious people. By visiting the pious people, again, our children will learn from us who the pious people of the community are. Many times our children don't even know who the scholars of the community are. The young ones in our community, if I was to ask someone that who is for so-and-so shaykh or so-and-so scholar, the reality is that many times our youth may not even know. How could we not know of the fountains of knowledge that exist within our community? How could we not know of them? Okay? We have an entire generation that doesn't even probably know where the masajid are. This is the reality, okay? We have an entire generation that you tell people that, have you been to the MEC Masjid? Which Masjid? What's MEC? Do you realize that MEC Masjid is one of the greater masajid in Chicagoland area? It's a gigantic masjid. I don't know what you're talking about. So the reality is that if we do not introduce our family and our youth to these individuals or these places, they'll be, deprived of this. So the benefits of the benefits of visiting, those that we should visit, discussed already. Now there are some etiquettes of visiting. Now this is the more important part that I would say, because this is where our Al-Adab Al-Mufrad comes in, our etiquettes fall into. When we do decide to visit someone, okay, there's a group of us that don't even think visiting has any importance at all, so we don't do it. And there's the group of us that love visiting one another. Alhamdulillah. But we have no idea of the Islamic etiquettes of visiting one another. There are adab. You can't just say that I want to visit someone, so I'm just going to barge inside their door and go visit them. That is against the adab, against the etiquettes. Instead of gaining a reward, it's possible that we may walk out losing a reward. Do you understand? There's a way of doing everything. If I want to read the Quran, I can't just grab the Quran and start reading it. I need to make sure I have wudu. I need to make sure my hands are clean. I need to make sure I'm dressed appropriately. There's a way of doing things. So you can't just say that I'm going to visit someone and barge inside their door and go visit them. No, that's not the right way of doing things. That is totally against the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. So what are the etiquettes of visiting people? Number one, and the most important is, be sure to always inform the one that you're visiting. Surprises are not welcomed and are totally against the etiquette. Unless there's someone that you're very close to. Like, your own, probably even the surprise, you should be very careful when doing this, okay? The correct etiquette is that you should always, book in your meetings. Do you understand? Inform them ahead of time. So always inform the person that you're going to meet. The reality is that surprise meetings are against the etiquettes of visiting another person. Okay? So the first thing, you should call the person, get in touch with the person and tell them that I plan to visit you on so-and-so day, at so-and-so time. Is it okay with you? The person will say, okay, it's okay with you. It's okay with me. Then the second thing you should also tell them, if they say no, alhamdulillah, put the phone down, inshallah, another time we'll visit you. But if they say yes, it's okay, then alhamdulillah. The second thing you need to inform the person that you're visiting is how many people will be with you. You should inform them. And whether they ask or not, you should say that I'm coming to visit you. Along with me is my brother. Along with me is my father. Along with me is so-and-so person. Along with me is my sister. Along with me is my cousin. Along with me is my friend. You should always inform them. Because there may be someone in your group that they do not wish to meet. They want you to come to their house, but they do not want another person to come to their house. And it's their right to reject that person. They have the complete right. I can say to someone that you are not allowed to come to my house, and you are allowed to come to my house, and there's no one that can say yes or no to me. Okay? So when you go to someone's house, you should inform them of how many people are coming with you, and who they are preferably, if they know the people. The reason of telling them how many people are coming is so they can prepare accordingly. Right? Many of us like hosting our guests. So we want to prepare tea, you want to have everything ready, you're short on time, it's almost salat time, you're going to have 15 minutes. So beforehand, prepare things. Okay? If you walk in on a surprise and you walk inside, there's a person there that you don't even know of, that you may not even know of, and these two people have a problem with each other. Do you understand? Or there's something that happened, and the correct way of joining them isn't just to barge inside their door and ask for tea. There's a more lengthier process or a more calm process that needs to be adopted. Okay? So when going to people's houses, first of all, you should call, inform them, give them a time. Second of all, inform them of how many people are coming with you, and you must seek permission for the people that are coming. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was once invited to a dinner. He then asked, can Aisha come with me? Who was Aisha radiallahu anha? First of all, she was the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the second thing was, she was the Ummahatul Mu'mineen. Who was she? The mother of the believers. Such a high rank and status. Who would even consider saying no to her? And guess what happened? The person actually said no. The host, what did he say? He said, no, Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha, only you come. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, look, I'm with my family, that's my family time. If you want me to come, we're going to come together, otherwise I apologize, I won't be able to make it. He then said, okay, bring us Aisha radiallahu anha along with him. The Sahaba were sincere. One may look at it and say, oh, it's so disrespectful, so wrong. But in his heart, he wanted to invite Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, probably because he wanted more one-on-one time. Maybe because he didn't have enough food. Possibly because his family wasn't present. I mean, the context to him saying no could be great. Right? But the message that we learn is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he still asked permission for his own wife. That, can I bring my wife along with me? Yes, you can. Alhamdulillah, no, you can't. And I apologize, I won't be able to make it because this is my family time and I need to take care of my family at this time and I won't be able to make it. Okay. The second thing. So the first etiquette was to confirm your arrival. Always confirm it. The second thing is that if you're given a time, be sure to make it. Okay. When you're given a time for a dinner, always be sure to make it on time. One of the worst things in our community, may Allah guide us all and give us all hidayah, is that we have no pabandi of time. Alright, our community, what do they call it? Desi standard time. That it's, by default, it's 4 hours late. I was once called to a marriage. I remember I was visiting Kentucky, my father, and I said to my father, I have to get back for a walima. I don't want to say the brother's name because he's from this community. So we drove really quick, and we came from Kentucky all the way to Chicago. And when we came, I thought to myself that we're 2 hours late. So I asked my brother that, Manash, is it worth coming? He said, no, come, don't worry. So when I walked inside, subhanAllah, the dinner started 2 hours after I came. Literally, it started 4 hours later, subhanAllah. This is something that's, another one of my friends present in the gathering. I remember that half family is Arab and half family is Desi. We attended his walima, and all the Arab brothers, mashallah, were on time, and the Desis did a good job of coming 3 hours late. So the Arab brothers are thinking, where are these guys gone? And the Desis are thinking, what are these guys doing here? Right? So subhanAllah, we need to make sure that whenever we go anywhere, if we're given a time, we should make sure we meet it. If we're going to be late, we should inform them. Right? There was a day in time where it was hard to inform another person. But alhamdulillah, today we have something called a cell phone. Today we have our text messaging. Today we can instantly inform another person of our delays. If we're caught in traffic, text them that I'm going to be late. Instead of just leaving them there and they're waiting, inform them that I'm going to be so many minutes late, please excuse me. So now if you're going to be half an hour late, they can tell you that, it's probably best you go back home because after 15 more minutes, I actually have to go to a doctor's appointment. So it's good to inform them. And if you tell them, for example, that I'm going to be half an hour late, they can probably keep the food warm or, delay the cooking. Make the arrangements appropriately. So if you're given a time, always meet it. If you're going to be late, make sure you inform the person that I'm going to be so much late, please excuse me for this. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very particular on time. And if anyone ever, misjudged time and came late or did something wrong, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was calm, but yet he apprimanded that person. He held the person. The very famous incident that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was transacting with another Sahabi. The person said that, give me a few moments, I need to go home and get some money. How many days later did he come back? He came 3 days later. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ata'abtani, that you've made me tired." So he asked him, where did you go for 3 days? You made me tired. He said it in a very calm way, but he told him that you gave me a time, you should have been on that time. Our salah, the Quran teaches us the very same thing. To bring this into our lives. That a Muslim should be punctual of his salah. Hafidhu ala salawati wa salatul wusta. What does the Quran say? That be particular with your salah. Right? That every single, inna salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitabun mawquta. That salah has a particular time. Everything in our deen has a time. So it's teaching us how to meet our deadlines, and when we make a promise to be somewhere, how to be there on time. Right? So, being there on time. The third thing, if by chance our host has to cancel, we shouldn't feel bad. The host says, last second I can't make it, I'm sorry. Or the dawah needs to be cancelled. We shouldn't feel bad. And beyond not feeling bad, so we're on the way there and he says, I'm sorry, last second, I can't do this anymore. We have to cancel, and if, we just have to cancel. So, first of all, we shouldn't feel bad. Second of all, if he does cancel or she does cancel on us, we should not ask for a reason. We shouldn't ask why. Because many times, as Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi says, the person that's hosting, he may not want to give the reason. There may be an argument between the husband and wife, and they don't want to share that with you. So why are you asking? Now if you're asking and they don't want to share that with you, the chances are, as happens in our families, we end up lying. What happens? We end up lying. The children are watching at home, the father's on phone, and he's saying Bariya when he's sitting on his couch. We're out somewhere and he's sitting on his couch at home. So the parents are watching that my father's lying right now. I can see that he's lying. Right? They learn a lesson from this. So you should not ask. You should not ask at all. And even better, make an excuse for them. But actually, I was actually thinking that I was a little tired too, my family was a little tired. Make an excuse for them. That my children are a little fussy today, so it's probably best that we don't hold it today. Let's reschedule for another time, if anything. And if you can't reschedule, we'll call you over, inshallah, Aziz. Do you understand? So the Muslim is someone who never allows another person to ever feel uncomfortable. Right? So you go to a dinner, and the person said, I'm gonna pay for the food. He opens his wallet, he realizes he forgot his money at home. Don't let him feel bad for another second. Pull your card out and pay for it. You understand? That's another thing when we're in madrasa, we used to do that on purpose. I'll treat you 5 guys go to the restaurant together. When you go to open your wallet, oh, there's no money here. Get your dinner. Obviously, you shouldn't do that intentionally, but the Muslim is the one who never allows the other person to feel awkward. Okay, so you've confirmed, you're on time, there was no cancellation. When you come to the house, the first thing is you should not look inside the house. You know, we have the habit of peeking in. There's a light on in that room, that's why they're definitely there. When they go and they check. Knock on that window, knock on this window, go this way, go that way, go to the back door, go inside the back of the person's backyard, all these crazy things. That's not the way to do it. There's a front door, stand in front of that front door and wait there. Do not look inside the house. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, once he was at home and he had a sharp object in his hand. And a person was looking inside. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam caught him and he said that if I knew you were looking inside, I would have poked this in your eye. If I knew you were looking inside, what would I have done? I would have poked this in your eye. Because the purpose of standing on the door, knocking and getting permission is to first of all see whether the house is appropriate and ready for you to actually glance inside. And until the point that Imam Bukhari brings a hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, that if someone is looking inside your house and you catch them, send them back home. Don't give them ijazah. Don't give them permission. Based on this, fuqaha have actually said that if you catch your guest looking inside your house, don't ever allow them inside. Send them back home. That will rebook the dawah, come back another day. I'm sorry, I'm not going to let you inside my house. Okay, so never ever look inside another person's house. This is you're robbing them of their privacy. This is very important. Where, especially in our local areas, we're walking down the street. People have their curtains open. Someone's watching TV. Someone's doing that. Someone's doing this. Someone's doing that. We should not make it a point to look inside their houses. Look down and walk. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that person's eyes should actually be poked out. Be aware of doing that, obviously. But the point is that we should be careful when looking inside another person's house. Okay. When we stand at someone's house, we should face the hinges of the door. When you stand at someone's house, when we're going to knock on the door, where should we stand? Facing the hinges of the door. Why should we face the hinges of the door? So when the person does open the door, in case there's a female there, will we be looking at her or not? We won't be looking at her. Okay? If there are women that are running back and forward in the back, will we be seeing them? No. So face the hinges of the door so you're actually looking away. Most of the times the hinges, not all houses again, but this is something that I've seen, the hinges usually face a corner. There's usually a corner wall there. Usually the shoe rack is behind the door. That's why there's a corner wall there. So you're looking there, inshallah there isn't a problem with that. Okay. Knock. If there isn't an answer after 3 times, what do? You go back home. Right? You knock, 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 and then you go back home. You shouldn't be knocking or holding the doorbell down for 30, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, waiting there. That's not the right way of doing it. Knock once, wait. Knock second time, wait. Knock a third time, wait. Then go back home. Now the person does open the door. When you enter, when you see the person, what's the first thing you say? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After you enter the house, you should take your shoes off and place them in a proper manner on the rack or on the ground in the place where usually the shoes are placed. Unless your host tells you to keep your shoes on. Okay? Now this is something that's very big. When we go to visit someone, we should always make sure that we put our shoes appropriately. When we come to visit our Lord in our masjid to pray in front of Allah, what should we do with our shoes? We should place them properly. This is one thing that you'll find a flaw in the Muslim community. Travel from east to west, north to south, that our masajid, I believe the Muslims do not know the concept of placing their shoes properly in the racks. And this is I haven't seen a single masjid that has an exception of this. So we should make sure, and if you want to see this in its true color, just attend the Jum'ah Salah and you'll find out what's happening. Okay? So we should make sure that we place our shoes properly. Now when we enter there, so we place our shoes there, we're entering into the place where we're supposed to sit. First thing, if you are not assigned a seating, you should not sit between 2 people. So if there's 2 people that are having a conversation here, don't just jump in the middle. Right? لا تجلس بين الرجلين إلا بإذنهما. Rasulullah says, do not sit between 2 people without their permission. Right? So first find a vacant place. If there's a vacant place in the corner somewhere, there's 2 people talking, you want to sit at a little distance from them, so in case they're having a private conversation, you're not intruding, but at the same time, if it's an open conversation, they'll invite you in. So sit at a distance from them where you're not actually intruding them, but you're sitting at a good place. Okay. Now if you do decide to sit between 2 people, you must first take their permission. And if there's 2 people that actually they make space for you so you can come and sit between, don't come sit between them cross-legged. Because they just made space for you, so you should accommodate back for them by giving them their space back. Now when you enter the house, and by chance you are assigned seating, where the person says to you, okay, take a seat here. So you should not reject that seat and you should take it. If the host of the house gives you a seating, you should not reject it, you should take it. The reason being is that probably he's giving you the seating for a reason. Right? I remember once I went to the house of my teacher, Sheikh Noshad, Maulana Noshad Sahib. And when I went there, he told us to sit in one place. He said, sit here. The chair was very grand there, so I said, no, Ustad Sahib, no, I can't sit here. He said, Khamosh hoke baith ja. He said, be quiet and sit down. So then later on, he told us, while we were having he was my teacher, so later on in the dinner, he told us, he goes, the reason why I told you to sit here is because the angle of the chair allows my family to openly roam around in the back. Do you understand? It allows my family to openly roam around in the back. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he called a sahabi to his house, and I'm forgetting the sahabi's name. He invited the sahabi to the house, and he told the sahabi, take a seat. The sahabi said, no, Ya Rasulullah, you sit here, I'm going to sit somewhere else. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the same thing to him. Take a seat here. And then the sahabi, he quietly sat down there. So when you're told to sit somewhere, you should sit there. Now bear in mind, you may be given a very grand seat in the house because you came early. Many times that happens. Someone young, he came early to he did the right thing, he came early to the dinner, and he was given a nice big single piece sofa, he's sitting down there. Now the one that's sitting down, when your host tells you to sit down, you should sit down. But as the gathering increases, if there's people that come in that are more elderly, more honorable, ulama, hufad come inside the gathering, you should make it a point to make sure you stand up for them. Do you understand? As the young one in the gathering, if someone elderly comes, you should immediately stand up for that person, give them your place. This is what we call ithar, giving preference to other people over yourself. So calling other people and saying, okay, you sit in my place, let me stand up. And the young one should be the last one to sit down. Keep letting people sit down, And if the seats are full, you stand, you sit on the ground, but make sure you give the cushioned seatings to those that are elderly than you, and also the scholarly people, because this is their adab and this is their right. Okay. Now after you've taken your seat, make sure two people should not speak quietly or silently, leaving the third person out. Famous hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If there's three people in a gathering, two should not whisper to one another, leaving the third person out. This is very common, especially with our youth. And more than this, it's very common when there's a new person in the house. Okay, two cousins are sitting there, and there's the father's friend comes and he brings his son along. The son's sitting there, the two cousins are sitting here, the two friends are sitting here, the two old friends, and they make sure they whisper in one another's ears to make sure that person feels left out. We should definitely not do this, right? We should be accommodating. Call the other person in, ask them where you're from, what's your name, bring them into the conversation too. Okay. Now we're sitting there. When we're sitting, you have to understand that we should not be investigating the house. So don't be looking at the walls, oh, this is here, that's here, this is here. Look at this person's got a crack in that wall there, there's some damp growing there, this person's got some mice running around there, they're having a field trip there, and there's some ants here. Don't look around the house. If you're there to talk with the person. Don't be looking around the house. Or giving nadar. Some people that like giving nadar, right? In the line, oh, what a clock like this? And they just give another to that person. Okay? So you should be very careful with using your sight. You shouldn't be glancing around, particularly if you know there's women there, the area where women are, you should not be there. When seating our guests now this is for the host. When you're seating your guests down, you should always make sure that you make a separation between the men and the women. Our gatherings should always be segregated. They should not be congregated. You understand? The men should be separate, the women should be separate. And allow the women to have their own area and their own place, and possibly ensure that the place where the women are, it's far away so that the men cannot hear them. So if you have a basement, upstairs, downstairs system, that's a good idea. Because you have to understand that the women are together, the men are together, they're probably meeting after so long, so what's naturally going to happen? There's going to be laughing, there's going to be giggling, loud talking, probably dissing each other out, and that happens between friends and family members. So you should make sure that the both gatherings are separate. So the parda and the hijab is kept to the highest level. In our gatherings, we should also avoid any form of music. In our gatherings, we should also avoid all forms of backbiting. In our gatherings, we should avoid all forms of slandering, because these are things that always happen in our gatherings. They always happen. We should ensure that when it's salah time, if there's a masjid close by, we should not be praying in our house. Where should we go for salah? Inside the masjid. Dinner da'wats, iftar da'wats are a total fail and a waste in our community. Iftar da'wats are usually a complete fail and waste. I actually make it a point not to attend any iftars in Ramadan, just because of the point that many of the times you have to compromise your maghrib salah in the masjid. It's the month of Ramadan. You've just fasted all day. And now you're saying just to act upon one sunnah, I leave something that's close to being wajib on me? Right? So when you're holding a dinner at your house, start the dinner, if there's a salah time, right, if there's a iftar, start from the masjid. Tell everyone, all the men in the masjid, drop your wife stuff at home, we'll pray salah and then we'll come home. This whole idea of missing salah and then having a dinner together, especially missing it in the jamaat, in the masjid, when there's a masjid close by, it's a waste altogether. You're probably wasting a lot of reward where you're trying to get a little reward here. So do not miss any salah at all. Okay. Especially if it's a late night dinner, then make sure that you pray your salah. If it's a late night dinner and everyone's sitting at, usually our dinners are late night, the host of the house should say that before we leave, we will pray Isha Salah. You should always say that. Make that a statement, that before we leave, we will pray Isha Salah. Because most of the people, when they go back home, they're lazy, tired, just had a very nice plate of biryani, a lot of gulab jamuns, and their just stomachs bloated and they can't even bend over. They know that as soon as they're going to ruku, it's all going to come out, so they just decide to go to sleep on it. Half the guys can't even sleep because their stomach's hurting so much. Okay? So we should make sure we pray our salah before we leave our home. If there is salah being led inside the house, and you do decide to keep I'm giving you guys a whole bunch of study right now. Honestly, what I'm putting in front of you right now is a whole zakhira of hadith in front of you. And this, inshallah, is very beneficial. Please note this down. Give extra attention to this. Okay. When leading salah, if you are holding the jamaat inside the house, there should be an adhan, there should be an iqamat, and the one who leads the salah should preferably be who? House. Yes, correct. The one who owns a house. The one whose house it is. Now, for example, it's my house and I say, you know what, that there's so-and-so pious person, there's a scholar or someone who's more worthy of leading salah in my eyes than myself. You lead the salah. Whoever he appoints is then the next person that will lead the salah. Okay? The women will not do jamaat amongst themselves. If they wish, they can follow the jamaat of the men, but the women will not have their own jamaat. They will pray separately amongst themselves. Now, what happens many times for the women that are present here, whenever you go to a banquet or a dinner, or especially if it's a late night event, always make sure that you pray your salah. For the men, alhamdulillah, at some point or the other, we gather together in that banquet hall, get a little corner, we pray. But the women end up don't pray. When they come home, then they're crying, oh, namaz nahi padhi, I haven't prayed. Oh, urke padhenge, I'll wake up and pray. And they end up missing the salah altogether. So the women should also make it a point. Probably because you're praying salah, someone else may see you and may join you in praying salah as well, inshallah al-aziz. Okay, so praying your salah. Now while you're in the gathering, there will be food served. When food is served, there are two things that you have to keep in mind. The first thing is that eat to your fill. Eat as much as you can. Okay? Eat as much as you can, at the same time bearing in mind how much food is there. So there's a few things. Okay, first thing. Depending on how many people there are, depending on how much food there is, you should make sure that obviously you don't overeat, so there's another person that's left hungry. Or if there's a person that's coming in late, you shouldn't overeat, so there's no food left for that person. You should accommodate for everyone there. But if there's enough food and everyone's there, then you should try to eat to your fill, because the person that's made the food has actually made it for you. So the whole idea of 1/3 wind, 1/3 water, 1/3 food doesn't apply, as Maulana Shafri Thani says, does not apply when you're a guest at someone's house. Okay? So there's a couple that said that I give my wife the dawat, she gives me a dawat. So every day we eat full stomach. You're cheating the system there. Okay? So you must make sure that you eat appropriately. Second thing, okay, when you're eating, ما طعن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم طعاما قط إن حب أكل وإن كره ترك. Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم never ever called out faults within the food. खाना बहुत फीका है, बहुत नमकीन है, बहुत मीठा हो गया. Right? It's too sweet, it's too salty, it's too this, it's too that. Don't call faults in the food. If you like it, in a habba, akala. If Rasulullah liked the food, he continued to eat. وإن كره, and if he didn't like the food, taraka, he just left it. He had another dish there. You understand? So that's something that should be kept in mind. Okay. Now when the food's over, your conversations are over, you should also bear in mind that you do not stay there for too long. So how long should you stay at someone's house when you go to visit them? This totally depends on how close you are to that person. Now if I go to my brother's house, for example, I can easily sit there for 6 hours and we can have a good time. But at the same time, if I go to another person's house, a musalli's house, or someone else's house that I'm not so close to, I need to be careful. How long am I here for? The person isn't missing on any other appointments, is he? Can they do everything else? Now what happens many times, Sunday night dinners, people just sit there and they forget that the person who invited them actually has children. And the children have school tomorrow. Do you understand? We forget about that. Right? The children have school tomorrow. The children need to be disciplined and put to sleep on time. But they say, nahi, baitho yaar, khayenge, penge, baatein karenge, rozana thodi aate. It's not about you coming rozana or not, but the children have a schedule. They need to meet the schedule. So you should be wise enough to understand that when time's up, time's up. I need to leave right now. So the children of the house can go to sleep. The lady of the house can go to sleep. The man of the house can also go to sleep. You have to bear in mind that the women of the house, can you imagine how exhausted they are by the end of that dawat? All day they've been cooking, preparing, cleaning, and it's dinner time, and after the dinner's over, they just relax and they're tired. Do you understand? And now when it's time to go to sleep, the guests aren't leaving. They're just not leaving. This happened during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This happened during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تدخلوا بيوت النبي إلا أن يؤذن لكم إلى طعام غير ناظرين إناه وَلَكِنْ إِذَا دُعِيتُمْ فَادْخُلُوا فَإِذَا طَعِمْتُمْ فَانْتَشِرُوا وَلَا مُسْتَأْنِسِينَ لِحَدِيثٍ. This is the ayat of the Quran. Rasulullah ﷺ got one of his nikahs to Zainab radiallahu anha. After the nikah was complete, Rasulullah ﷺ called the Sahaba for the walima. They all came, they sat in the walima, and people started chatting away. Right? They started sitting back and just chatting. Now, because these people were sitting here and chatting, Rasulullah ﷺ couldn't leave the gathering, and he was feeling discomforted. He wanted to leave, he wanted to go somewhere, he wanted to invite more people. But the whole gathering was on halt and freeze because these people just weren't getting up and leaving. So the Quran came to address these people. The Quran came to address these people. فَادْخُلُوا فَإِذَا طَعِمْتُمْ. Once you've eaten, فَانْتَشِرُوا. Leave. Once you've eaten, once you've had your food, you should leave. Another thing that the scholars have taken from this ayah, and they said that the food should be kept to the end. The host should make it a point to keep the food to the end. And after the food ends, there should be an understanding that the party is over now. Do you understand? There's no after party here. After the food's over, wash your hands, have your burp, have your chai, and walk out of the house. Do you understand? Make sure you leave the house and don't stay there for extra long. So based on the person, how well you know that person, you should gauge how long you're going to stay in their house. Now, if you're staying there, even if it's a close friend or a relative, right? You should look at the host. Keep a sharp eye on the host. Is he getting tired now? Is the conversation getting dry? Are we forcing the chill? That's what we said. Are you forcing the chill now? Take it easy, go home now. The chill session's over. So look at the person. Do you think that everyone's getting? Can you see the children getting really wild and rattly? If that's what the case is, then get up and leave. Do you understand? Leave the gathering. Okay. Now the last thing that I want to mention, if for example the guest is someone that will be spending the night there. Okay, now if the guest is someone that will be spending the night, first thing, you should host that person for a minimum of how many days? 3 days and 3 nights. After 3 days and 3 nights, then you can tell that person, brother, if you're going to stay here now, I need some rent. And the milk is costing me a lot. Do you realize that the gas costs money? You can lay it on that person. These are my charges. If you want to stay here, chicken, this is your charge. Gosh, this is your charge. Obviously, you shouldn't do that, but you can. You have the right to do so. You totally have the right to do so. You can tell the person that I'm sorry, I can't host you any longer. 3 days is all I could have done, but now I can't afford to do that. I can't afford it. And the person that's being hosted, as I said at the beginning, if the person that's hosting you rejects you, should he feel bad? No. He did you a favor by alhamdulillah feeding you for so long, so get up and leave now. Time's up, get up and leave. Now if, for example, the one that you're keeping is staying the night, you should prepare for that person appropriately. First thing that you need to make sure is that you inform the person of which way the qibla is. So the person, when he's sleeping, you make sure that his feet don't go that way. And at the same time, if he wishes to pray his salah, if he's missed any salats, or he wants to, get up to pray tahajjud salah or whatever, he doesn't have to bother you. He can pray his salah appropriately. Also inform the person of where the washroom is. Okay? Inform the person of how to adjust the heat and wind in the room, where the windows are. So if anything needs to be done, the person can do it themselves. Okay. Now the bed you give that person, you should make sure it's clean. That person will also need a towel. Ensure that there's a clean towel there. A clean towel. Okay? Now, the room that the guest will be staying in, you should make sure, especially if it's a male that's staying, that there are no clothing of women lying around. There should be no clothing of women there at all. Okay? The washroom should not have any clothing of women at all in there. There should be no undergarments in that washroom at all. Do you understand? This is a very big thing. If you have a washroom in which the women's undergarments are there and women's clothing is there, you should make sure no one goes into that room. Until the room is cleared up, everything is put away, and then the person should be allowed to come. So you should tell the person that please, you use this washroom, do not use this washroom right here. This is a very important thing. Okay? And in the morning, if the person needs something, you should cater to their needs as appropriate. Some scholars have also said that you should provide the person with a mirror, you should provide the person with a comb, provide them with some perfume. So when the person wakes up in the morning, if they want to, fix their shape of their face or their hair or anything, they can do that also. So there are etiquettes to visiting. Do you understand? Visiting is a very good thing. But some of us, we totally forget the etiquettes. This is wrong. And I wish I can say it in any more clear words. What ends up happening is people, if they visit without etiquettes, they become a complete burden. This happens way too often. Do you understand? Where someone comes to visit you and they're pushing themselves on you. That's not the right way of doing things. Okay? And also that you shouldn't ask for a da'wat. You shouldn't ask for a dinner. You shouldn't ask to be invited. That's also wrong too. Rasulullah says that, لا يحل مال امرئ إلا بطيب نفس منه. That it is not permissible to consume the wealth of another person unless that person wishes for it. So you shouldn't force yourself onto another person as well. Okay? Now, the one who's hosting, one last etiquette that I want to mention before we close off. The one who's hosting, you should bear in mind that don't always go overboard. Obviously, if it's a one-time event and there's someone really great coming, you go overboard with the hosting, a lot of food, a whole buffet, this, that, and the other. Okay. But don't always go overboard. Because what ends up happening is if you always make it a point to go overboard that dawat rakhni hai, so there has to be 5 salans and starters, and there has to be chawal and roti and rice and bread and the starters and the mid-course and then the dessert at the end and all these things. If you decide to do this every single time someone's going to come to your house, you won't be inviting people too often. Do you understand? Learn how to invite people to your house and only give them dal chawal. The lentils and rice. Teach them you should learn how to have a dawat like that too. A one-dish dawat. Something that doesn't exist in our communities, but we should also learn how to do this. Because it allows us to frequent our, guests to our house. They can come more frequently and we know that whatever we have, we're going to give it. We're not going to go out of our way for that. And the guest shouldn't also feel violated or wrong or feel bad about this. Okay? Even if you're provided with a cup of water, you shouldn't feel bad about this. The one who's hosting, first thing I said, that don't always go overboard with cooking. Having a lavish dinner. At times, if there's a need, then go ahead. If there's a walima, if there's a dawat, and it's you wish to do it, then go ahead. But don't always make it a habit of doing this, because then you're restricting yourself from serving other people. And the second thing is that when you do cook, also always make sure that your cooking matches the diets of the one that's coming. So if there's someone that's coming in there on the Atkins diet, be careful how many people you're going to call, because they may be expensive, right? Or for example, there's someone that's coming that has diabetes, someone that has high cholesterol. Keep these things in mind, right? So they can eat appropriately and they don't feel restricted or feel that they're being pushed upon it while they're eating. And also when you cook in moderation. In the sense that don't overcook, not only in amounts of dishes, but even if you're cooking one dish, don't go overboard. Cook in moderation. And for example, if there is leftover food, do not feel shy by serving that food to the same guest tomorrow morning. Leftovers is a crime in our community. There's nothing wrong with that. Do you understand? As long as the food is clean, it's good, it's healthy, the person can eat it. Because the reality is the guest needs to understand that if I don't eat it, this person is going to be eating it tomorrow. So you should ask for it. Last night's salan was good, so why don't you give me some at breakfast? I want to have some more. By asking for that, that'll allow the person to do it, so the family members don't have to, keep going around you and cooking for you. So these are some etiquettes, and the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us these etiquettes. More or less all the points that I mentioned had some hadith or the other linked to them. I just didn't relate the actual Arabic words. Some I did, some I left out. So we should keep this in mind and educate ourselves with etiquettes of visiting one another. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are so many hadith. Imam Bukhari he brings the chapter, Man zara qawman fata'ima indahum, the one who's invited to a house of another person, and now there's food. What to do then? Fadl ziyarah, the excellence of visiting. Okay, and so there are hadith here, so we should try to act upon this, and inshallah try to visit the pious people, visit people, try to visit whoever we can. There's benefit in this, visit the sick people. Don't only go to dawats where you're going to have dinner. That happens too. Some people, they only go to visit people if they know there's going to be food there. That shouldn't be the case either. So you know that if I go to visit the Moli Sahib, if I go to visit the Imam Sahib, he's not even going to give me tea. So forget visiting him, man. Or if I go to visit the sick person, I actually have to take food. I actually have to give to this. So I'm not going to visit that person. That's not how it should be. Visit for the sake of Allah. Visit for the sake of the reward. And I want to finish with the hadith. What was the hadith? Whoever visits another person, right? What's the reward? What does Allah say to that person? That your walking was very good. You've done a very good job. And what is the reward? And you've created for yourself وَتَبَوَّأْتَ مَنْزِلًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. And you've prepared for yourself an abode in paradise. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the ability to act upon this. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make some of us to follow the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all a long life of health and iman and faith. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the last moments of our life the best moments of our life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the kalima La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah at the time of our death. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the burial of Jannatul Baqi. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrect us all on the day of judgment along with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wave away from us the hisab kitab on the day of judgment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honor us by allowing us to drink from the blessed hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all first entry into paradise along with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us united in this world, reunite us time after time for His gatherings, for His sake. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us all united in Jannatul Firdaus together. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallah bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa akhir da'wana. Alhamdulillah.